I think I did. Okay. Good afternoon, and thank you for coming to Let's Talk About It. And I have some very, very, very important guests on here today. Actually, they have been here before. They were the very, very first group that we had on live. And it was at the start of the school year where we were talking about COVID. I did invite them back because I just wanted to do a check-in to see what exactly is going on in the school system since COVID and since we have returned in our spaces. I will have them introduce themselves and tell you pretty much their job or what they do at the school or anything else that they may want to share. And well, I guess we'll start with Mr. Gordon.
Good evening, everybody. Anthony Gordon. I'm the founder of S.H. James Preparatory Academy. We are a free open enrollment public charter that is applying for state approval in the Generation 26 cohort. Really excited to be here, talk a little bit more about COVID and a little bit about our school. We are opening August 2022 upon approval. Will be a campus that's based in the principles of social emotional health and wellness, culturally and historically responsive literacy, and community-based entrepreneurism. Again, currently in the application process. If you'd like to learn more about the school, you can check us out on Facebook at S.H. James Preparatory. Thank you for having us here.
Thank you. And Tanil, Michelle.
Good afternoon, everyone. Tanil Shah, I'm an educator here in Texas, and right now I teach sophomore English. Just been really busy juggling the roles, different roles in education as well as different leadership roles, plus being a mom to my children as well.
Thank you, Michelle, for coming again. Ms. Hewins.
I'm Sandra Hewins. I currently work as a technology teacher for 7th and 8th grade here in Michigan. This is my 14th year in education.
Thank you, ma'am. And last but not least, Ms. Felicia Joseph Stewart.
Happy Sunday, everyone. I'm an educator here in New Orleans, Louisiana. I do compliance for the special education department at my school, as well as being a mother to a first-year freshman in college dealing with this pandemic. Happy to see everyone.
Thank you. One of the questions, and everyone, if you would like, could just jump in and we can start our discussion this way. How have things been since our last conversation in regards to experiencing COVID in the pandemic as far as education?
Well, for me, it's going well because we're 100% online. Initially, we were supposed to do part in class, part online, but before the school year started, our administration decided that everybody was going to stay home and work from home. So I'm happy with it. I feel safe being at home. My daughter is also home for school as well. It couldn't be better for me because I feel like I'm not in harm's way trying to do my job.
Okay. Anybody else would like to share?
I'm opposite. We are hybrid, meaning we have kids that's online and come in the building. Our high school opened up to come in the building in October. We had a pushback after the Hurricane Zeta, where we started, we stopped, we started again. So we started mid-October, and on a daily basis, we may have 100 kids in the building, if that many, anywhere between 50 to 100 on a daily basis. So for these past month, it's been okay. It's been okay. The staff have been full staff for those that did come back in the building. Others didn't come back for other reasons, as teaching from home or operating from home. But other than that, it's been okay. It's not what I thought it was going to be. It was less scary than I thought it would be. Let me say that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And Tanil, how have the experience been for you?
We are also hybrid. We have about not even 20%, I guess, of the students on campus. We are college prep, so we're 6 through 12. And some parts have been a lot better. I think the part that people did not anticipate was the responsibility that was placed on the students themselves and the parents themselves to make sure students are online and held accountable for engaging in the lesson. And that's been really the conversations we've been having with different families, is just saying, okay, look, I understand, like, because the kids were like, oh, this is gonna be like it was in the spring, and no, it's a whole new year, a whole new approach. So that has been the challenge that we've faced. I'm like, but I feel like as an educator, we're there for the kids, and actually seeing the kids makes it seem a little bit more normal than when in the spring where we were only talking to the computer screens.
Okay. Now, has it been at any of the campuses? I know we're kind of like in three different states here. At any of the states, or have anybody returned full capacity?
Detroit Public Schools did, and as of Friday, they were going back online because the numbers here in Michigan are going up.
Wow.
I was happy about the fact that we didn't have to start one place and then go back and pick up somewhere else. So glad that our administration decided to just do it virtually from the jump, because now those teachers got to try to adapt over the weekend and create an online thing because they initially started in the classroom. And that's going on. There's a lot of districts around here that are pulling their kids out of the schools and going virtual.
Wow. Well, I do have a question. With us approaching Thanksgiving really fast, like next week, what are your thoughts about returning back to school after Thanksgiving break? Because people are going to do the gatherings. A lot of people around their families, they tend to get lax, and they might not want to wear masks because this is their family. What are your thoughts about that?
I think we're at a space where this entire thing is going to have to be revisited. I saw a report earlier that we had a record high on Friday, 184,000 cases across the country. And especially here in Texas, I know we've seen a pretty major spike. In Fort Worth, I know several of the schools have already said that they're going completely virtual until winter break.
Wow.
So we're getting to a place where we're going to have to really think about peeling it back and reevaluating if it's worth putting people at risk, because cases are spiking consistently, and it's not just something that's isolated, it's happening across the country.
It's something to think about. Did anyone else want to comment on that?
I feel that if we go back hybrid and virtual, let's do a 14-day quarantine before the kids come back in the building. That would be my suggestion, because even a little farther down south past New Orleans, they have one high school that closed last week and won't be back till after Thanksgiving due to an outbreak. As close as Baton Rouge, they've closed an elementary school and a high school. So like he says, across the country that the cases are on a rise. So I think as we use, the key word is everything is fluent. I think directors and superintendents need to visit the thing for what it would look like after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
I feel like the gradual thing that we did, where we started online, 100% online, and then we slowly brought people in little by little, has worked. We've been able, in our area, we've been able to keep it to a minimum. I feel like I agree with Ms. Stewart saying that we need to have that quarantine so we don't undo all the good that we've done already, because parents are still understandably concerned, and we keep reassuring them that we're doing everything to keep the kids safe. And part of keeping kids safe is just letting that gap happen.
Wow. As a question, I also is just in my head, because I know I have a very diverse group of educators here. I have one that's in high school, two in high school, and I think one in middle, and then Anthony is just everywhere. As you look at high school, and at schools rather, and I've seen some schools where they have their brain breaks and they actually go outside. Do you think that is putting scholars more at risk by them going outside, or you think they just need that break? What are the thoughts there?
I think we're challenged with meeting their educational needs, but also their developmental and social emotional needs. So I don't think necessarily taking them outside puts them at risk. I think it's just acknowledging the fact they're still kids. Now, we're in the middle of a pandemic, we're dealing with a whole lot of issues, but they are still kids, and we have to meet the needs of where our kids are at. And if they need to get up, they need to get up and move.
Mhm. Okay.
Now, for us in a physical education class, it's required that their teacher take them outside, even though it is high school.
Wow.
They're outside and they're spaced out outside with enough adult supervision to make sure that social distance is kept at all times to give them, like you said, a brain break. Not even just the younger kids, even the older kids need that as well.
Wow. Okay. So, I mean, I guess again, do you feel like that is still putting them more at risk, being that yes, they're outside, they're coming back in, even if they're sweating, they might not always go and wipe down properly. Like, is that still a risk? Or is that just, they're playing it safe according to the guidelines?
With ours, they're not outside actually doing a physical activity. That's more of their brain break time. They're sitting in the courtyard, and we're here in New Orleans. You have to stay in your pod. That's your thing. You travel in your pod. You stay in your pod. You don't interact with no other group of kids. If you're in Miss Shaw class, Miss Shaw go to lunch or Miss Shaw go to the bathroom. All Miss Shaw go to the bathroom. Not, Mr. Gordon group come in too. Everybody have to stay in their pod, and that is strictly enforced in our area and in our building. So like I say, when they're outside, they're really sitting around the courtyard taking that breather, but they're spaced out with, like I said, enough supervision to make sure y'all not coming into contact.
Okay. Now, I know last time we touched on this because state testing was canceled last year. Well, the last school year. Do you think we're headed towards that again this school year?
Not for us, because we just had our pre-ACT for our 10th and 11th graders.
Okay.
We're prepping for fall. I have an in-service on Friday before I leave for Thanksgiving for the testing for in the state of Louisiana. So right now it's a go until we hear further notice from there, because our testing is normally in December. So right now for the state of Louisiana, for us, it's a go. I know for high school.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything for us as far as the testing not happening. So ours is not until April. So more likely than not, at this point, there will be testing. And we've done NWEA testing at our school for one of the tests that we do 3 times a year. And we've done it virtually. And it was challenging because you have to enforce, I need to see you. I need your camera on. It's an ongoing battle. If I don't see you, I'm going to stop, I'm going to stop your test and all of that. We did it. And we got the majority of our kids tested. So if they base it on that, we probably will more than likely test in April for the state test.
Oh, wow. I haven't been following here. I know that they made a complaint, but to TEA, but I don't know how far it would go. But I guess in my wondering would be test security if they're taking it at home.
Well, that ACT is still testing nationally. You know that.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's what the states are looking at. If ACT can still give a national site testing, the school should be able to come up with a way to do it as well. I think that's how everybody's basically looking at it.
Oh, wow. So, I guess to me, another thing that I've thought about is if we're still in this quarantine for another graduation season, that would probably, how do you think that will affect the families this year?
I think we're going to face the same issues we did last year with students feeling like they deserve it, and they do. They've worked all this time to get to 12th grade, and then there's no prom, there's no graduation. I think we're run into the same things we ran into last year.
Oh, okay. Well, that might not be that well then. We run into that.
No.
I have so many thoughts with this because here it is a whole almost another year and we're still in the same predicament. What are your thoughts even after Christmas? Because that's when the huge outbreak happened. I know in Michigan, You deal with that colder weather, and then you start flu season, a big flu season. Like, are they preparing staff and teachers up there for that?
Well, they pushing really hard for everybody to have their flu shots, which I had mine.
Okay.
We're not looking to go back until sometime in January at this point. They had our school open for like custodians and administration. As of Friday, they shut that down because they had teachers even had the option to come in and work virtually from their classes. And someone contracted COVID and they shut the building down. The building is shut down now until January. Nobody's going.
My God, that's so sad. You did get a comment from Miss Leverett. She is an established educator as well. And she just said best wishes, because to me, we all are on the front line. And, it's really, sometimes it's challenging for me because I'm like, I start coughing. I don't know if it's asthma or something else, but, it gets that scary at times. So, another thing how do you all feel if you would have to go on another virtual session? Like, if they decide after Thanksgiving, look, the number's way too high in the school, and they switch back to virtual, do you feel you're more prepared this time?
I feel like last spring, everything kind of hit at once and we were just kind of thrown in and held on. You just kind of held on to the reins and just do what you had to do. I do feel like if they said, okay, you know what, after Thanksgiving, you guys are going 100% virtual, I feel confident that, I mean, even though we do what we have to do, I feel more prepared. Like, I have my books here, I have what I need. And I'm like, I would be thankful that, the top administrators are also valuing the lives of the people that are trying to make education still happen for our kids. Because I feel like that's the message that sometimes gets lost, is you forget that these teachers are real people and they're putting their own selves at risk, their families at risk, to try to help the next generation.
That's true.
Yeah, and I think going virtual is perfectly fine, right? I think there's a way that virtual can be done that's not overly taxing for the adults or the students, and I think that's where we're really running into a wall right now. Is we have a lot of schools and systems that they're overloading, especially the kids, right? Like a kid being in front of a computer from 8 to 5 with a 30-minute lunch break just isn't realistic, and so like I think reimagining what school at home looks like is the best way to approach it. And I know like my wife homeschools our kids, and the approach that I is taking is homeschool is super effective, first of all, because a lot of homeschool kids do a lot better in post-secondary than or you would see in what a traditional public school system is. And a lot of times these kids are doing school about 4 hours a day, right? Because they are by themselves or in smaller groups, and they're able to get the information and take it in and get the help that they need to process. So I think, and a lot of what I see is, especially like looking at the online comments and the blogs and charter mom blogs and things of that nature, is you get all these pictures of the kids knocked out in front of their computer screen by 11 o'clock because they've been sitting in front of a screen with no break for 4 hours. Like, is that really a realistic way for kids to learn? So I think like virtual is a perfect platform, but we can't think that virtual has to look exactly like what you would get in the classroom. And I think that's where the problem comes across, and why a lot of people are like disenfranchised with the whole virtual learning thing, is because it's not realistic and it's not working and it's not going to look like a classroom. So we have to revisit and reimagine what virtual looks like. And I know homeschool a lot of times has a negative stigma to it, but like taking some of those principles and using some of those principles and building out what our programs look like for students to learn at home, giving them breaks, giving them opportunities to get outside in their backyard and just like have brain breaks and mental breaks so they're able to come back and be more focused on the work at hand, is a much better way to approach it. And I think with what we're seeing nationally, like I said earlier, with the spikes, is going to be something that eventually may happen. So are we going to go to this system that's pushing like school has to be school just like kids are in front of us, when that's not realistic and it's just not working.
Yeah,
I
we
agree
have
with
a
you,
nice
Mr. Gordon.
schedule. I'm sorry, go ahead, Ms. Stewart.
No, I was saying I just agree with Mr. Gordon on what he said, because think about it. We as adults, how long are you really focused in a Zoom workshop? How long are you really focused in a training? Let's be real. Let's be realistic with these children. Because we're taking school and make it virtual, it doesn't, like he said, it doesn't have to mimic the building when we're inside of the brick and mortar. Let's just be realistic as adults. Our attention span is that short when it comes to these Zoom and these trainings that we on. So we're really asking children to do things that adults wouldn't do. That's not fair. I think virtual will work fine, like Mr. Gordon said, but a lot of pushback that we're getting is with the working parent who's at home with that child doing virtual. Or I have 3 different kids in 3 different schools. That has been a lot of the feedback we've gotten with the parents. Like, I can't be at work and be there to make sure he gets on and things like that. I have the youngest one I'm working with, and then it's time for him to join class at the opposite time of my youngest one.
That's
So
true.
that's my biggest concern, is like how much will our parents that have to work, and we all know we're in a crisis for us. So that's my biggest concern, us going back virtually. Not saying it couldn't be done, but my concern is about the family part of the parents that have to go to work. Those single parent homes, those parents, those homes with the grandmothers that don't know about technology. That's what my concern is really at if we go back 100% virtually. And I understand we're in a pandemic with health, but we also have the other side of that as well.
I think if I hop in real quick with what Ms. Stewart just said, I think going virtually allows us to allows us more room to accommodate families like that, right? Because if we look at the percentages of students who or parents who may be in that situation, and we have students and families that have the ability to be virtual and the kids have that support at home, then we create a space where we can limit the amount of students in the building. So now if I have 5% of my student population that is in that situation, we can have that 5% at campus and socially distance and provide staffing and support for those families and still be safe and healthy while keeping the majority of our students healthy as well by keeping them at home. So I think it's really like revisiting the structures and how we're looking at and approaching this. And that really allows us to provide that support for those families who may need it and who are in that situation, because that's a very realistic point that you bring up. I think there are ways that we can work around it if the structures are put in place.
Okay.
I feel like the biggest concern is that, like, I'm looking at about half of our kids really are in a situation where there's so many challenges that they're overcoming. You've got 5 or 6 people in the house all trying to use the internet. You've got grandma trying to watch them while mom and dad are at work. You've got some of those kids have special learning needs that are very difficult to meet. So you have this compounding issue, and I feel like what happens is we lose our kids that are the most, that the thing about doing virtual is our students that are on level or above will probably be fine, but they would probably be fine anyway. It's that needy group that gets lost, and you sort of, that we keep talking about closing those gaps, but I feel like in a pandemic, those are the people that suffer the most. And so that would be my concern. It's not that I don't think we could do virtual. It's just still making sure that we are reaching out to those families and like Mr. Gordon said, being more creative about how we address the needs of those students.
The director is making sure that our students receive their services. She has I pop into a lot of different classrooms, and when I'm in there, I see our resource room teacher in there. And she's also creating a subgroup and pulling her students and working with them. So she's making sure that those students receive the same services they would in the building. So I think it's going to be up to them, those resource room teachers, to get on the grind, and they're going to have to make it happen virtually so those students receive those services that they're entitled to.
Yes, because in our school, we're paired, our ESS educators are paired with the general ed. And they have to collaborate. They have to go to cluster, and they do have to be in the classrooms, like you said, where their students are, to service their students.
That's good. because that was going to be one of my questions. Like, I know we have our, I know some people that still deal with SPED. You have ours, you have other meetings, you have some kids that may need a 504 at this time. How is that being addressed if the kid isn't at school? Like, are the services being met virtually? Are they, just doing the paperwork but not doing the legwork behind it? Like, what's going on with that? Because at the end of the day, that gap in that service still needs to be met.
For our students as 504, if they're due up for eval right now, the meetings are held Zoom first, and then they come in the building one by one at a selected time to have their evaluation done. Same thing for reevaluation for any of our ESS students. Most of our IEP meetings are held via Zoom with parent, general ed, or ODR, and the ESS teacher and the student. That's what we're doing right now for us, any reviews, but initials, no. Most of the things are held over Zoom until it's time for that student and that parent to come in the building to do their part of evaluation for its testing.
Oh, wow. Wow. I mean, would that put the staff members, I mean, this is, and I'm just asking, would it put the staff members at risk? I mean, because if that parent come in for a meeting, does she have to go through temperature check? Does she have
when you enter our building, you have to have a temperature check and you do a tracer form. The form asks your name, date of birth, time, contact information. Have you traveled in 14 days? Have you had a fever, a cough, been around anyone with COVID, or tested positive for COVID? You have to do that tracking sheet when you enter the building. And it's one point of entry, and that's our front office. All the rest of our entries are shut down unless it's in the morning when the staff is coming in, and we come in through multiple entries and do the same process every day. And then you receive a band that say you're cleared for as the the tracing sheet, and you are escorted to wherever your student and you are being evaluated at to have your evaluation done.
Okay. Did anybody else have something different at their different location? So that's pretty much the standard for everybody. Goodness. I would never have imagined like having to go to work and go through like that type of checkpoint, fill out the form. If I cough, people looking at me like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, because we went in the building for our initial time back. The teachers went back in and we had to download an app and take our temp. And then the app, you had to videotape yourself.
What?
Your temperature. And then you get your approval on the app. And then when you get to work, you had to show that you were approved or you couldn't come in.
Wow.
Every morning before you came in, you had to do that. And then
not playing in the D. Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
They like Fort Knox in the D. That's good. That's a whole new thing. I hope nobody watching don't get no ideas and like, look, y'all need to do this in Texas. Download the app and get the kitten.
Yeah.
Wow. So do you think like as we are going to Thanksgiving, coming back from Thanksgiving, and I know I asked this before, but like just give your honest opinion. Do you think that we're going to go through another shutdown?
I'm hoping so, but I don't think we are because they're fighting our governor so hard here in Michigan. I mean, they've revoked a lot of her privilege to call a lockdown. So we'll probably need one, but I don't think we're going to have it because there were so many people resisting and we had all kind of protests in Lansing against her. And then people were plotting to kill her and kidnap her. So
I seen that
headache again. And I don't blame her. Like, look, do what you're going to do. Because at this point, it's not worth her life. We're supposed to do. We're all adults and if we're adults and have kids, we know how to tell them. So I like, look, you all are on your own because I don't want to die because I'm trying to keep you safe.
Yeah, that was kind of intense. And I seen it had got to that.
Right.
And then I also noticed some other things going on in Michigan, but that'd be a whole different week conversation about it. Can't really talk about it this week, but yeah, we had to revisit. the amazing changes that has happened in Michigan. But yeah, that was a whole different case with the governor, and they was plotting to kidnap her. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's rough out in the streets. That's probably why they got y'all downloading the app. They gotta be safe up there. I'm sorry. Okay, let me focus. Back to being serious. In all seriousness, I know Felicia has a college student, and I mentioned this on one of my, I think last week we had talked about briefly. How is it as being a parent with a child that is her first year in college? She had to go through the COVID graduation. That's a lot. Like, that's a whole lot. And I know before the first conversation we had touched on it, and I think she was preparing to go to school, and now that she's at school, how has that experience been?
Her freshman semester at college has been good. She was hybrid. She has 2 classes on Tuesdays. Everything else was online.
Okay.
For her college, when she does attend the HBCU, they were pretty good with their COVID outbreaks. I mean, they had one towards the end of the semester.
Mm.
The semester on the 25th, the outbreak came with last week.
Okay.
But the kids were already leaving campus. They was doing early come home so they could break them up in their travel.
Mm-hmm.
So it has been, I've been worried, I can't lie, but it has been a good experience. As normal as possible that she could have had for us being on college, being on campus, because she did stay on campus. Yes, she did have a roommate. Yes, we are in a pandemic, and she did have a roommate that was a total stranger. Yes, it's real. But I must say, thank God that her roommate parents took the proper precautions, as I did as a parent, to have COVID testing done and things like that prior to arriving on campus. So it worked out fine. And they all have been responsible. Her pod, as she traveled with, is 4 of them. They've all been responsible to always wear their masks and go get tested by the same time. So it's been okay.
Okay. And Tennille also has a college student. How's that experience been, Ms. Shaw?
At the beginning, he really struggled with not he voiced that he felt like he missed the resources that were available by not being on campus. That was a huge adjustment for him, just wanting to. And I was really surprised because he's normally a really good student. I was really surprised that bothered him as much as it did. But then after that initial adjustment, it was like, okay, I'm going to do this online. I'm going to stay safe. And he ended up preferring it because it allowed him to continue working, and then he could log on to the lectures after the fact, and allowed him to kind of have the best of both worlds. So it was, but I as a parent, I think no matter how old they are, I mean, you're trying to let them be a grown up, but at the same time, you're worried, like you want them to be safe. You want to make sure that they're okay. So I'm thankful actually that they had to be virtual, because I didn't have to worry about him interacting or contracting things like that.
Okay. I really, I know we always, time go fast when I get you all on here, because it's so many great minds and great comments just coming all at once. And I have a question. I'm looking at 3 different chats. So if I keep looking down, it's not that I'm ignoring y'all, but people are sending me questions because they don't want to put the questions in the chat box on the live. I don't understand it. And I'm not going to be in true Monique fashion, so I'm not going to say their name out loud. But they did ask a question in regards. Oh, okay. Yeah, they did ask a question in regards to do you feel like you're putting your life on the risk every day when you go into these places, when you go into school? Like, do you do a mental health or a mental check for yourself? That's a good question. Why do you put it in the chat?
Yes, I do a mental health and a mental check. Before our kids came back in the building, I was doing testing every 60 days.
Wow.
Now that our kids are back, I do a COVID test every 30 days.
Wow.
Because I have to make sure that I keep myself and my family safe.
Mhm.
And I'm the one that's outside that's interacting with other people and other students. And it has gotten to where, even as we say, the pod that I work with, we're on the same schedule every 30 days to go get tested for COVID. So yes,
Wow.
I do a mental health check and I do a physical health check. So yes.
Well, that's good. Wow. Every 30 days? You do the rapid?
Every 30 days. We're they have it set up by us being educators in New Orleans, in Orleans Parish. We can go as often as we want to. It's no charge.
That's why which one do you do? Because I'm scary when it comes to stuff
The
like that.
nose.
He does keep me near the cross. You do that. Oh, goodness. Okay, well, you're braver than me. I'm just gonna name that for you.
Look, I'm gonna take that little pain if it gives me that result I need to have to be here a little longer. I'm gonna take that little bit of uncomfortableness.
Okay.
Okay, that's how I look at it. It's not pleasure, but for my results to come back negative and me to still be here and not give it to my family, I could take it.
Okay. Maybe I should look at it that way when they ask me to go.
Go find the one that does the mouth swab. They have the one sites that do mouth swabs too.
Okay, that's the one I take. I can't take it though. You scared me for a minute, friend. Anybody else want to comment on that? I'm sorry, I interrupt because I was visualizing the thing going.
I agree with Ms. Stewart just saying that you have to kind of check because I do feel like as someone with pre-existing condition that I am putting myself at risk, and I'm taking all the precautions that I can. I try to, I won't touch the door. I have hand sanitizer every 3 feet. Like I'm washing my hands, like I'm doing all that I can. And then the students that are physically in my classroom, I'm like, hand sanitizer, hand sanitizer. Did you clean your hands? Go do this, do that. But just to kind of, but even then I acknowledge that it's a risk, but I also know that what we're doing is helping so many people, and a lot of families are like, because a lot of the parents that I've talked to, they said, I can't teach my kid. I don't know what it is to do. So I appreciate you for what you do.
That's facts. I appreciate it too.
I think for me, it's and I'm in a interesting situation because I'm not in a physical school building, but part of the process that I go through when building out my school model is going and doing school visits, right? Because that's a huge part of what we do is like observing what are things that other people do well. So I myself, and especially with my given situation, my wife is expecting, so I'm in a space where I can't bring anything home, right? So I've had to be really creative in how I do my job. So a lot of what I've been doing lately is instead of going into physical school buildings, is connecting with leaders and doing virtual observations. So we're popping in the Zoom classrooms and doing observations and things of that nature, just so that I can make sure I'm still doing the things I need to do to make sure my school is ready to go and ready for our evaluation, but also finding ways to keep myself safe. I have gone into several school buildings, but even at that, that's a risk because you never know from building to building what precautions are being taken or what methods are being used. So it's very scary. And like I really feel for anyone that's in that situation on a daily basis and having to really navigate that and deal with the mental part of just being an educator in the first place, which is one of the hardest jobs you can have, and then adding in that extra layer of having to be concerned about your health and safety.
That's true. So everybody had good points on that one. I'm like, let me think. That makes sense. I did have, I don't know why they keep texting my phone. They need to text this chat. Another question, I guess this is for Mr. Gordon. It said, as you are opening your new school, do you feel like you're putting your wife at risk because you're dealing with adults? You're not dealing with children, and some adults don't do right by the COVID laws. I guess that's what they're trying to say.
Yeah, well, I think I'm in a great position because I'm able to do a lot of things virtually. I think one of the things that this whole pandemic has brought to light is there's a lot we can do through right? So I'm in a pretty good space there. There are times where I have to turn down in-person visits or not necessarily do in-person visits, just keeping that in mind and not wanting to expose my family to potentially contracting COVID. So, but I think overall I've been able to navigate around it pretty well. And even in situations where I have had to go out, I've been able to take the precautions needed to ensure that we're still safe and healthy.
Wow, that's really good. Also, I have a question for SPED. SPED, that's what it is. What do you do in the case that the scholar is not getting their accommodations met via virtually or via virtually because parent can't come to the school?
That's a broad question. So they're not getting their accommodations met, being there is not a teacher there to support them. Their paperwork has expired. I have like some multiple layers to that. So if their paperwork is expired and the student can't come to the school to get their evaluation, that's a whole nother ball game. If their paperwork is not expired and everything is up to date and they're not receiving their accommodations due to lack of an adult doing their job, then the parent needs to contact the principal and set up a Zoom meeting and bring their concerns to their principal or their teacher or the master teacher, because I don't know what's the setup in the school that they're in.
Got it.
Now, their paperwork is told it have expired. The eval has expired. They have to get that evaluation back into play.
Mm-hmm. So I guess you nailed all layers of. I'm looking down. I'm not ignoring. I'm really trying to read, read this text.
That's okay.
Yeah, you answered all layers. I guess the layers was in the sense of the parent doesn't have the proper resources to get to the school.
Okay. Well, the parent need to call the school. Set up a Zoom meeting with teachers, administration, and the person that's over that special education department when I say administration. Also ask who caseload that child is on. Who is that special education teacher that serves that child? Regular special ed, general ed, you need all the important people to be at this Zoom meeting.
Wow.
So the parent needs to call the school, set up a Zoom meeting as soon as possible. If not a Zoom meeting, because some parents don't know Zoom, let's do a conference call. Because conference calls still work.
They do.
So that would be my response to that parent. I hope information has been helpful.
Yes, according to what was text, they say yes and thank you. As we are, and I hate to see y'all go, but it's like 5:13, and we usually stay on an hour. Y'all like my favorite group of people because we could talk for days about education and laws. What do you think? And I don't know if you all have experienced this. I know some schools may have a class or a set or a group of people, or one person may have been affected with COVID, and then the whole class is sent home. How do you feel about that policy? Well, nobody's like, I ain't touching that one, Monique.
Well, Monique, it's funny you asked that, and across my news feed, it comes that 2 more schools in an area farther down south has been closed due to COVID. Not the classroom, but 2 more schools.
The school itself, not just
in the Lafourche Parish area, has been closed due to COVID outbreaks.
Wow.
I don't have a problem with you sending the whole class home because it's safety.
Mm-hmm.
It's safety. I mean, you may not have no symptoms, but whereas 2 more people may get symptoms. So it's safety. Let's be safe than sorry.
Wow.
Like the old saying say, let's be safe than sorry.
Mm-hmm.
This virus is not a joke. So if we have to send a class, a group of kids home, I'd rather my child being home for those 14 days and I still have my child on that 15th day, whether you let my child come back to school and my child gets sicker or continue to spread this on to the adults that's coming out risking their lives and other children. Then you have a shutdown, like I just said, they have in Lafourche Parish. They've shut down 2 schools due to this outbreak.
Wow. I didn't even anticipate that. I know that I watch, well, you all know I watch the news, I watch feeds and articles. Now I did see in one school where it was a teacher who kind of outspoken because they didn't inform her of what was going on. Like that's a whole nother side of a thing where they didn't tell the teacher that a child was infected, and then you just start seeing people not coming. Have you all experienced that? Uh-oh. Mr. Gordon started rocking.
So if we've learned nothing else through this whole thing, this virus is unpredictable.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
You can't, okay. So going back to the original question, I think it's perfectly fine for schools, classes, whatever it takes to be shut down because we don't know, right? Like one kid or one adult coming into that building with COVID, we don't know what the effects and results of that is going to be. And it affects everyone differently, right? One person can get it, have some flu-like symptoms, and be fine in a couple weeks, and another person may pass in a couple days. So like we can't treat this as if it's something that we know or we can contain or handle. Like Ms. Stewart said, it's better to be safe than sorry. There's a story I was reading about a teacher who died potentially because one of their students came in infected. He tested positive, and a couple of days later, he was gone.
Yeah.
So do we like keep our fingers crossed and just like hope it's going to be okay, or do we take the measures that we need to take to ensure everybody's going to be safe? Because at the end of the day, we want everybody to be safe. And I know personally, a lot of my friends and family members have been affected by this.
Wow.
And it's no joke, right? It's no joke to like get a phone call saying one of your family members or close friends has passed from COVID. So we have to do the things that we need to do as educators, as the people who are put in charge of other people's lives for a living, to ensure that we are doing our best to keep people. That means we're sending whole classes home or shutting whole schools down, shutting whole districts down. We have to do what we have to do. I know kids need to learn. I know we have students that have gaps that need to be filled, but if we aren't keeping them safe and healthy, they're never going to get to fill those gaps anyway.
That's
so
true.
like we have to really be responsible and take this, take up that mantle of this responsibility we've been given and make the right decisions, even if they're going to be unpopular.
That's true.
So,
Wow.
I think it's our first job is to keep them safe. That's our first job. They're with us 7 hours a day. That's our first responsibility. Afterwards, then we'll figure out what we need to educate them with, how to teach them. But that's our first job. And I preach that to my classes, and it's actually been very helpful because the kids will say, I know that that's what you need to do. And I've actually had them report things that just so that we're aware. Addressing the other half of your question that you said that, I know that our school as a whole has been fine, but our school district has the policy of sending out emails whenever there is a suspected or confirmed case, and just trying to make sure that immediately. One thing, I know people use it say it as almost a joke or whatever, but they're like, if you have any symptoms at all, stay over there, go over there, and most people have been very respectful of that.
That's good. That's good. But what about, and I know y'all like, why am I coming with this? What about that employer who may not have any days, and they, employee rather, they might not have any days to take off, and then they just take that risk and come to work.
And see it.
It's not about if you have the days to take off. It's mandated by the CDC that you have to be out 14 days. I don't care if you don't have no days. That is a guideline by the CDC. You have to be out if you've tested positive for COVID. It's not an option.
Our school had decided before they decided that we were going to be 100% virtual that our employees would be paid if they were off, because they didn't want that. They didn't want people lying about their symptoms because they were concerned about their money. And so they had okayed us to be paid if we were out for those 14 days.
Okay, so the person that just texted me, I hope y'all answered that for them. That wasn't for me, because y'all know me. If I'm sick, if I wake up coughing, I'm not gonna be in today. Have a nice day. But so yeah, that's really really important, and I'm glad that Ms. Joseph and Stewart, I call her everything, brought that up, because there are some staff members that think like that. You know, oh no, it's just a cough, it's just asthma. No, you can't be here. And they don't stress that enough. And then there's also those administrators that feel like, you know, okay, well, I'm above CDC. No, ma'am, no, sir. You need to follow these guidelines, because we don't want no outbreak here at this school. You know, at the end of the day, that's a valuable lesson that I learned last year. If I didn't learn nothing else in my years of being in education, take care of yourself first, just like they say on the airplane. If you were to get into any accident on the airplane, who do they tell you to look out for first? Yourself. So I learned that valuable lesson last year when I had got sick, that it was only me taking care of me with a one friend, and you know the school still went on. So I don't want to see any of my friends hurt. So please, I hope if you watching and you listening, take heed. Them days, it doesn't matter. CDC say you got to sit home 14 days. Have a nice day.
Right.
So we are winding down for real this time. I'm not going. I just get excited when my friends be on here. Because we got 8 minutes left. So I do have a last request. And do you have any best practices that you would like to share? And we end on a positive note, because you all look like, oh gosh, she done woke up the COVID conversation. We in our feelings. I don't want nobody to leave upset. Yay, everybody smiling. Do you have any things that have been successful in educating since COVID has happened? What best practices that you could possibly teach someone? And we do have people that watch the replay. They might not be on the live, so I will check. If there's questions, I'll probably reach back out to y'all like, hey, somebody asked you a question, you wasn't on here. But what are some best practices that you could possibly teach people, like in terms of reporting if something isn't going right, as far as employers, in terms as educators that don't exactly know that by law, 14 days is your requirement. Don't come in here coughing and acting like you're not sick because you're scared of what's going to happen. So can you share some of those best practices in our last, I think it's 7 minutes, because I probably took up one of y'all minutes talking. I'm sorry in advance. So go ahead. And everybody just share your best practice. You can go in any order.
Well, I think the first thing is like know the law, right? So look up the guidelines, read them for yourself. If you're unclear or don't understand, there's hotlines and websites and frequently asked questions that you can go to that can clarify things for you. I think like one thing that we've become so accustomed to in this new era is, you know, depending on other people's opinions to determine what we think or what we know. I think at the end of the day, you have to do the research yourself and really get to the bottom of like what is going on, what needs to be done, what are the processes, and then from there you can take the best course of action if you see something that's inappropriate or if you have questions about something that's going on. So I was an English teacher, so I'm always gonna tell you to read first, right? So, like make sure you're like grounding yourself in the information, and then you can take whatever steps you need to take from there.
Okay, that's a good push.
I would say that most districts have at least one person in HQ that's their point of contact. Like bother those people. They're working on their phone. It's 24 hours most of the time. You have a question, just send them that text message, say, or send them that email, and they will get back to you. Like, hey, I'm not sure if this is the way that I'm supposed to deal with this, or this is what came up. I agree with Mr. Gordon as far as definitely know for yourself, and then verify. Go ahead and have that point of contact person let you know that that's what the district policy is. Because the other thing that keeps happening is this is a fluid thing. This is not a concrete, we said in February, this is what we're going to do. It keeps changing as guidelines keep coming up. So verify.
That's good.
And just stay abreast of the news and all of the changes, like Miss Shaw said, because it's constantly changing. So if I watch the news once a day, but I'm on there trying to get that information. So I'll know what's the new thing or what's the new regulation. So I'm constantly learning.
Okay.
I agree with all the panelists, and main thing is like all of them said to sum it up: communication is the key, and honesty. If you see, you see, and communicate to the proper people, the proper administration, HR, know the information. I agree with everybody said, but communication is the key in this situation,
Okay.
and stay informed.
Now, I agree with everyone. One of the most important things, definitely communication, and I guess I would say honesty and integrity. Integrity. That would be mine because it's this thing is real. I have had on a positive note, I've had some classmates, and they might be on in December, where they have they're COVID survivors. But I've also had some friends, who it didn't end well for them with COVID. And what as we wrap it up, I want people to, please take heed on the playback. If you have questions, reach out. Especially if you have questions for SPED. I hate to put Felicia business out here, but she is an expert in special education. So is Tennille, and I think Sandra might have a bit of that in her too. Mr. Gordon is opening a school, so he is very knowledgeable in everything, every aspect of the school, especially laws and policy. I do want to thank everyone for tuning in. Next week, we will be on location at Painting with a Twist. Just to end on a happy note, don't laugh at me. Only thing I can do is a stick figure, but it's the best stick figure out there in the business. But we are doing Painting with a Twist. We were selected as their organization, their nonprofit organization, for the month of November. So please note that if you want to participate, you can participate virtually. They will send a kit to you, or you can come to the studio and laugh at me paint. We will be live, so you're going to be on camera too. So thank you again for tuning in, and I thank my panelists for always being ready. And if you have further questions, please reach out. This thing is real. I don't want to see any of my friends, colleagues, even my enemies hurt by this. So have a wonderful Sunday, and talk to you soon.